a hassle. We're going to make a slight adjustment. No, it's not a slight adjustment. We're going to make a major adjustment in the syllabus. And it's going to be this. And I'm doing this because I really want us to finish the next series of books so that if we get farther behind and we don't finish one of them, it'll be the Garth Nix books that we don't finish. So, having said that, what we're going to do is starting on Wednesday. Today I'm gonna wrap up Sabriel. If you didn't watch the videos over the break, that's fine. I'm just going to finish what we need to do with Sabriel today. So what I want you to do is for Wednesday, start reading. Start and read a lot of the first book in the Bartimaeus trilogy, which is Bartimaeus, the Amulet of Samarkand. Okay, it's about the same length as Sabriel. Sabriel's what, 400 something, 300 something, almost 500. It's not that long. It's close, but it's not that long. Read a fourth. Okay, so 125, 150 pages or so. And what we'll do is we will then spend the next 4 days on the Amulet of Samarkand, starting Wednesday. So Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, and then the next book, 4 days, the next book, 4 days. That should only have us 1 day behind. And I think by the end of the semester, we'll then be able to finish everything. So we'll finish Sabriel today. We'll do the next 3 books. We'll have an exam over those 3 books. Okay? After the final Bartimaeus book, which is Ptolemy's Gate. Yeah. We'll have an exam. It'll be the same kind of thing, take home so we don't miss any class kind of stuff. Then we'll go back to the Garth Nix books. And then the final exam will be over those 3, Sabriel, Lyriel, and Abhorsen. Okay, so it won't be confusing, believe me. You'll be able to go back to where you were kind of with Sabriel. Okay. Okay, so before I do anything else, if you would pass your exams up this way. And by making that change, I'm not saying that the Jonathan Stroud books are better or more important or anything like that than the Garth Nix books. It's just the Stroud books have a couple of ideas that I want to make sure we don't skip. What is this? That's my syllabus, so I can put that over there. Oh, in case you're interested, I always do this with all my classes. What everybody else wrote about. Sacrifice in a Mythical World. I don't know what topic number that is because it's not written down. The lessons we learn help us grow. Seeing through pristine lenses. Tolkienian recovery in the Chronicles of Prydain. Life lessons from Prydain. Topic 5. Topic 4. Lessons learned. Topic 5, life lessons are the keys to growing up. Topic 3, the art of sacrifice. Topic 1, the world according to Tolkien, the motive of recovery. Topic 5, life lessons in the Chronicles of Prydain. Topic 4, growing older and growing up, themes of maturation in the Chronicles of Prydain. Topic 4, themes of sacrifice, Chronicles of Prydain. Topic 3, theme of sacrifice in the Chronicles of Prydain. Topic 3, the courage of sacrifice, courage in sacrifice, theme of sacrifice in the Chronicles of Prydain. And it looks like topic 4, maturation in the Prydain Chronicles. Okay. Where we left left off, Sabriel was on her way to the Abhorsen's house. And I'm going to skip a bunch. She gets to Abhorsen's house, and who does she meet? Or what does she meet? Margot. Margot is what? What does Margot appear to be? Put it that way.
Cat.
A white cat. Small white cat that talks. Kind of a sassy cat. Probably what most cats would be like if they could talk. But we don't know what Margot is. That is, it's clear Margot is not just a cat. Okay? What distinguishing feature does Margot have? Or wear? Red collar with a bell. And if you look at that collar, we're told closely, the collar's not just a collar. It's a thing of charter marks. Okay? So Margot is something bound by this collar. Okay? So she gets there, and Margot and the sendings of the house help her, teach her, etc. She gets to the Book of the Dead again, and she leaves from there via a paper wing, okay, which is like a glider, but it's made out of paper. It looks like. It's actually not literal paper. It, again, is a charter-made kind of thing, okay? So she and Margot leave on this paper wing, and they crash. But just before they crash, she releases Margot. Okay? She takes the collar off him. He says, "You release me, and I'll help you." And she's like, "But I don't know that I can trust you. You're a free magic, whatever." And he does save her. He saves her from dying in the crash. And then what does he seemingly attempt to do? Kill her. Why? He wants to remain free. She has the power to bind him. But he's essentially unable to. And she does rebind him. When they are at that location, they see this essentially like boat in dry dock. Okay? And the boat has, what do most ships, wooden ships, whether you've read about them, you've seen a picture of them, etc., what do they have on the front of the ship often? A figurehead, which is literally a carved, statuesque kind of figure. Usually, all the ones I've seen, and I've seen quite a few, all the ones I've seen are women. Or, at least if not women, female. That is, they might be something like a female goddess. So not a woman per se, but feminine. Right? This one's man. It's male. And what happens? He gets freed because this is not just a statue. It is a man who has been imprisoned in this form as a figurehead on the prow of a ship for a couple hundred years. Okay? So he gets free. He's naked, stark naked. She's 18. He's about the same age, plus 200 or so years. You know, and there's this kind of tense, awkward section. And what do we find out about him? What name does he call himself? Anybody know? Touchstone. Okay? What is a touchstone? Okay, a jester, like a court jester, a fool. Okay? What else can it be? I'm trying to remember the scientific name for it. And I can't. It's a stone that you can use to touch to something else that tells you what that other thing's quality is. Like if you have a magnet, you can find out if a metal is magnetic or not by touching the magnet to it. Which one is it? Copper isn't magnetic, I think. Put a magnet to copper, it doesn't do anything. Put a magnet to steel, it attracts it. Touchstone is the same kind of thing. Okay? So he calls himself Touchstone, and yet we find out later, okay, and when he says Touchstone, he means this. Okay? We find out that other meaning of his name later towards, not quite the end of the novel, but towards the end of the novel. We find out he's the bastard son of the dead queen who died a couple hundred years previously. Okay? She had an affair with, chief of security or something like that. But he also had brother and sisters, and he gets put in that position, that place, because of something he did and or didn't do previously. Okay? So he is now along for the ride, so to speak. Why? What office, let's say, does he take upon himself? What is Sabriel? The Abhorsen. He's going to take on himself the position of her protector and defender. Okay? She kind of looks at him almost like a slave. Does he call her Abhorsen? Does he call her Sabriel? No. Almost always, he refers to her as, what's the name? Milady. Why? Because he's a sexist from patriarchal culture? No. Why? Because he's putting her on a level, on a status higher than himself. Because this is his way of abasing himself, saying, I'm not worthy to be considered alongside you. Though, cut to the chase, we will find out at the end, he is worthy to be considered alongside her. Why? I said he was the bastard son of a queen. Even though he's bastard, he's still what? Your prince. Even though you might not be legally the heir of that individual, what happens if all the other heirs are dead? You're the heir, okay? So he's a prince. And he's referred to her, who is not of royal birth, as Milady. What does she refer to him as? Touchstone. Because that's the name he gives her, okay? So they're on their way to Berserker, the capital city of the Old Kingdom. Why? What's in Berserker? Shelby?
Well, it's the castle where Touchstone's from, but also it's where the Abhorsen, the father of the Abhorsen is.
Right. There's a palace there, okay? And at that palace, beneath that palace, there is a reservoir. Like an indoor swimming pool, if you want. Okay? So you have this giant indoor swimming pool underneath the castle or palace. And within that swimming pool are some charter stones that actually uphold the palace. Okay? And one of the things they've come to realize as a result of what Touchstone tells them, as a result of some information that Margot is able to give, but not much, because he's bound by the collar he wears, and because of what Sabriel knows, they have to go to Berserker because that's where she believes her father is. Okay? Again, she still thinks her father is partially alive. He's not yet fully dead. And she wants to bring him out of death. Why? She doesn't want to be Abhorsen. She wants to be 18 years old and have some fun, as we were talking about last time we met. So, they come across this little fishing village. It's plagued with, some evil and stuff. They solve that problem. They take a boat, and they get out in the open sea. Now, one of the things that is clear in all the novels is running water. Moving water makes it very, very difficult for dead things to harm you. Okay? Or maybe even things that aren't dead, necromancer type things. Well, you don't get more running, unstill water than the ocean. It's never calm, right? Even in a quote-unquote calm sea, there are currents. So, as they move, if you had the map open, the Old Kingdom, the coast is like this. As they move farther out to sea and they're moving north, Belisarius up here. What starts to happen with Margot? Well, that charter magic of his binding, of his collar, starts to get not as strong. That is, he's still bound, but he can now say things that he couldn't say if he were back on land. And the closer they get to Belisarius, it's kind of like the more he's remembering and the more he's saying. And they get up to the harbor that leads into Belisarius, and they start to get closer and closer to the city, and he clams up. And Sabriel's like, no, you got it. He's like, it's not, he chooses to clam up. He can't speak anymore. Okay? So at that point, theoretically, what could they do? Yeah. Sail back out, drop anchor, let them spill the beans, and then go in. So why doesn't Nyx have them do that? Because that would ruin the plot. His plot is Sabriel and Touchstone, to some extent, have got to remain a little bit ignorant of some things so that those things get revealed to them as they go. Right? So they get to Belisarius, and what does the city, initially at least, look like? Does it look like it's been overrun by evil? No. There's still trade going on. There's still commerce going on. What do they hear about, though? What strange thing do they discover? The farther into the city and the closer to the palace, which is just outside the city, what do they hear? What's happening to orphan children? Louder? They're being used as slaves. Okay? Notice, they're orphan children. Why? Because nobody will care. Okay? But Sabriel cares. Touchstone cares. We can debate about that. So they've got to figure out why. They know there's obviously some evil there. Okay? So what in the meantime has Touchstone told them? Well, by the time they get to the palace, he reveals what happened all those years ago. He had a brother. And what did his brother do? His brother killed his mother.
And his 2 sisters.
His brother's name's Roger, or Roger, possibly. Kills his mother and his 2 sisters. Why? Is this a simple, he wants power kind of a thing? Why does he kill him? To break the charter stone. Remember when Sabriel goes across the wall, she comes across the dead soldiers, and then she comes to that charter stone that's been cracked. And she finds a dead mage. Okay? A mage was murdered there, sacrificed. Why? To break the charter stone. Okay? So, if you break a charter stone with a mage, that defeats the power of the charter there. That allows free magic to have some sway. Okay? Underneath the palace, there are, I can't remember the exact number, 7 charter stones. He kills his mother and 2 sisters. 3 broken charter stones. What happens if the other 4 are broken? Well, the implication is all hell's going to break loose. Okay? It's the charter stones that help keep free magic in check. Okay? So, Touchstone tells them about how his brother, years ago, killed his mother, his two sisters, and what happened to Touchstone at that point?
He was crazy.
He went crazy. There's a particular term that's used to describe the kind of crazy he goes. Berserker. It's a word from the Viking language, Old Norse. And it means, literally, bear shirt. Okay? That's its literal meaning. Its metaphorical meaning, however, is that the individual who goes berserker, or the individual who is a berserk, is a shapeshifter. That individual becomes bear-like in battle. Lacking reason, in other words. Okay? The term, as I said, comes from Old Norse. Why? Because the Vikings in battle would kind of do this. You don't want to be standing next to your best friend in a Viking battle when you and your best friend go berserker. Why? Because you're swinging your axe and or sword and it doesn't matter who you hit. You just kind of lose track of relationships, let's say. Well, that's what happens to Touchstone here. He kills a bunch of guys and then he gets, goes away, etc., and gets frozen in the tree. Sorry. So, they make their way there, and what do they discover? We're told, if you're looking at the palace from the top, it's essentially square. And there are 4 entrances underneath to this reservoir, northeast, southwest. Okay? They make their way down, Margot, Touchstone, and Sabriel. And what do they have to do? Well, they get down there, and they see what? Sabriel's father's body, covered in ice. Why? Mostly dead, because he's been in death for so long. So they have to go in, and they have to create what's called a diamond of protection. Okay? So that Sabriel's going to be here, and Touchstone and Margot are going to be helping with the rest of the diamond, because Sabriel's going to go into death. For what purpose? To bring her father out. Okay? That's what she thinks is her purpose. So, while she goes into death, they're watching what happens. The dead start pouring into this chamber. They come down, they start lining up, because eventually Roger is going to come down, but he's not Roger anymore. Now he's Caragor. Okay? Notice, by the way, the spelling there. Rigor, like rigor mortis, what sets in after a long time that you're dead, so that when he comes in, does he look like what he used to look like 200 years ago? No. Why? He's used so much magic. One, his physical body isn't there. He's got a kind of charter-made body, but it's free magic made. Okay? So, what happens? Sabriel goes in. She finds her father. She speaks with him. She says, "Why were you never a real father to me?" And he tells her what? "Sorry, I had a job to do. That job was not raising you as my daughter. That job was binding the dead and making sure they stay bound." But he says, "We've got a few minutes here. Let's make it up." How much time's a few minutes? I think he says something like 1,000 heartbeats. 100. 10,000 heartbeats. Okay? Let's imagine his heartbeat's not real low right now because he's under a little bit of stress. So if it's 100 beats per minute, he's got about 100 minutes. Okay? He doesn't have a long time. So he tells her what has to be done. You got to find Caragor's body and do what? Destroy it. How? With the Abhorsen sword. and use the bell that will send him where? 1 through 9 past the 9th gate. Okay? He'll buy them time to leave. So he does that, and let me skip a whole bunch. We have 30 minutes left. And let's see here. They leave the palace. Touchstone goes Berserker again. He gets Sabriel and Margot away. They run. 391. Sabriel says, you didn't tell me you were a prince. So I said Touchstone tells her that. Her father tells her that. And they meet up with the two sisters of the Clare, Rael and what's her name? I want to say Saran, but I'm thinking Saran. And they fly back to the wall. Why the wall? It's where his body's at. Or it's near there. Okay? They have to destroy his body before when? Okay. What else? Go back to the beginning of the novel, when she arrives at the wall. The flutes, the wind flutes, before the full moon. They get there, and what day is it? It's the day of the full moon. So they've got several hours to find the body, destroy it, because now that Abhorsen, her father, the former Abhorsen, has gone beyond the 9th gate and is dead. Okay? Sabriel is the new Abhorsen. That evening, the wind flutes won't work anymore. And the dead that are around that aren't fully dead will all come back. Okay? So they get to Waverly College. They go off to, I think it is Bain. They find the sarcophagus, okay, that has Caragor's body. They dig it up, and they take it back to the college. Why you take it back to the college when there's a bunch of students there doesn't make a lot of sense, right? I mean, every superhero movie, something majorly bad's about to happen. What do people do? They try to distract the majorly bad thing from a populated area. Okay? Tony Stark takes the nuclear missile and sends it up into the thingy so it doesn't destroy Manhattan. But why do they go back to the college? They need help. Who are they going to need help from? All the students who have been studying magic, plus the teachers who are charter mages. Okay? So there's quite a bit of help there. But they get there, and it doesn't quite work. So, let's see here. Let's skip a bunch. I'm going to pick up with when they get back to I think the college. Page 449. They get back to the college, and we're told 457. Sabriel tells her old teachers, "We will shortly be attacked by the dead." And Miss Greenwood, the magic teacher, says, "So there will be danger to my students?" Right in the middle. She spoke, pushing her way forward between two frightened English teachers. Yeah, because, we're all wimps. She looked Sabriel in the face as if in recognition and then added, "Abhorsen." Now, has Sabriel told her, "My father's dead"? Not yet. "There will be danger to everyone." I mean, she told Horace when she arrived back, Colonel Horace and such. She said there will be danger to everyone, but without the aid of the charter mages here, there isn't even a chance. That is, we might be able to succeed. But without these charter mages, we're dead in the water. So, Miss Greenwood says, "Okay, let's get the other mages, let's get the prefects, etc., etc. Let's evacuate the others." Okay. Skip on to 459. Okay. They've got the sarcophagus, they pull the lid off, and we're told Sabriel decides to leave Touchstone, and she walks a little ways down the drive. She's got her bells, and we're told, now all probably ineffective against the awful might of Caragor, and an unfamiliar sword, strange to her touch, even if it was forged by the wallmaker. The wallmaker, who is that? That reminded her of Margot. Who knew what he had been, that strange combination of irascible companion to the Abhorsens and blazing free magic construct sworn to kill them. That's Margot she's talking about. Okay? A strange combination of irascible companion to the Abhorsens and blazing free magic construct sworn to kill them. When she meets Margot, he says he has served 100 times the number of years she has lived Abhorsens. She's 18. He has served 100 times 18 Abhorsens. 1,800 Abhorsens. 50 years each. How old is Margot? In this form. Thousands. Okay? Because he is a free magic being. He is essentially ageless. Timeless. Okay? So, she says, or thinks, "I left this place knowing almost nothing about the Old Kingdom, and I've come back with not much more. I'm the most ignorant Abhorsen in centuries, perhaps one of the most sorely tried." That is, most ignorant, I know the least, and yet I'm going to have the hardest test. Okay? So, the dead start to come. We hear gunshots. The charter mages come out. And page 469, the sarcophagus begins turning. They're trying to stop it and such. And 470, Sabriel says, "The final rites." She drew her hands from the other's grasp, held them out over the body, that is the body of Caragor, in the sarcophagus, even though the spirit of Caragor is now coming into the college, forming the marks for fire, cleansing, and peace in her mind. She didn't look too closely at the body. Doesn't look like a sleeping, defenseless touchstone. What does that mean? Well, sleeping, defenseless touchstone's kind of sexy. He's kind of hot. Chris Hemsworth. This thing? No. This looks like what? A rotted, decayed corpse. Okay? She's tired. There's free magic, etc., etc. There's an explosion. She's on the floor, coughing. And we hear a voice, "The blood price must be paid." And it's Caragor. Okay? The creature that had once been Margot, page 47, A familiar voice, though not the liquid ruined tones of Caragor, but the terrible speech of the night in Whole Hollow when the paper wing burned. It wasn't Caragor. And we hear, I must deliver my last burden, then the bargain is done, and I may turn to retribution. And there's Margot. But not Margot as she knew Margot. Not the nice little white cat. No. The creature that had once been Margot, this page 472, blazed a little more than 5 yards away. Squatter than it had appeared previously, but equally misshapen, a lumpy body slowly drifting towards her, atop of column of twisting, whirling energies. And the creature says, I bring you Abhorsen's sword. And Margot, whatever Margot is in this form, drops her sword in front of Caragor and the bell called Sabriel. Okay? Caragor calls her forward. The thing laughed, a sound like a match igniting, page 473. Sabriel loosened the ring on her finger and edged away, keeping the sarcophagus between them, her thoughts racing. Okay? She says, maybe I can turn Margot, the thing, back into Margot and complete the last rites. What is she saying? Maybe I can hit a grand slam. Maybe I can do it all. Okay? So, Caragor says, Abhorsen's mine, 474. You will leave her to me. The Margot thing, says, I've waited too long to allow my revenge to be taken by another. That is, I'm going after her. And it flies at Caragor. Okay? Sabriel looks for touchstone and her former teacher. She sees her teacher lying curled up on her side. She knows touchstone's alive. Touchstone says, my leg's broken. Run. Save yourself. Wiley's busy. Run south. Live a normal life. Okay, run south means what? Go where? Away from the old kingdom, farther and farther into ENGL. How can she live a normal life? She's not ENGL. She's old kingdomish. She's bound up with magic. Okay? She says, I can't. I'm the Abhorsen. Okay? She picks up Sabriel, the bell. Practice hands, keeping it still. No need. Bell's choked with brick dust. And then she puts it back down on the floor. Her father's sword's just a few feet away. She picks it up. She looks at the charter marks. And she reads on it. The Clare saw me. Do we know who the Clare are? Other than people that have been kind of loosely referred to, they live in a big old glacier way up north on a mountain, and they kind of see the future. Or do they? Pieces of it. Is the future one thing? No. It's millions of possibilities. They see possibilities. They don't always see exactly what's going to happen. The wallmaker made me, the king quenched me, the Abhorsen wheeled me so that no dead shall walk in life. For this is not their path. Sabriel, this is not their path. Okay? And what happens? Caragor's, standing there digesting something. Okay? So, Sabriel puts the sword away, page 478-79, pulls out her bells. And Caragor says, toys, Abhorsen, and too late. You're not going to use your little bells on me. It was not just words he spoke, but power, free magic power that froze Sabriel's nerves, caught at her muscles. She tries to ring the bells, but she can't. But a girl, lying on the ground, coughing out her last breath, touches Sabriel's ankle with a light caress. Just barely touches her. She gets a little buzz, like a static electricity charge. A small spark of golden charter magic came from that dying touch. It swelled into Sabriel's veins. It reached her wrists, and the bells rang out. But not like they should. Okay? She rings them again. She's trying to control Caragor. For a moment, she did, but not totally. She stares at her empty hands for a while, page 481, for a second, sorry, still feeling the harsh imprint of bell handles. Why? Because Caragor turned the bells to dust. And he says, I should have remembered you were a troublesome brat. Sabriel lunges with the sword. Doesn't do any good. And he says, no sword can harm me, not even one made by the wall makers, especially not now, when I finally assumed the last of their powers. Assumed he has taken unto himself the powers of the wall maker. Power that ruled before the charter, power that made the wall. I have it now. I have that broken puppet, my half-brother, and I have you, my Abhorsen. Power and blood. Blood for the breaking. I don't have it memorized, but somewhere back in here that we didn't talk about, there was a rhyme that came up. As when they were at the little town, the fishing village, and she met the little child and had the child recount the, trying to see if I can find it real quick. I can't.
285.
Yeah. 5 great charters knit the land, together linked hand in hand. One of the people who wear the crown, royalty. So who does that represent in terms of who's in this scene? Touchstone. Okay. 2 in the folk who keep the dead down. Who's that? Abhorsens. 3 and 5 became stone and mortar. Stone, charter stones. Mortar, the wall. 4 sees all in frozen water. The Clare. Okay. So, where was my spot? He says, 481, 482. I have finally assumed the last of their powers, power that ruled before the charter, power that made the wall. I have it now. I have that broken puppet, my half-brother, that is, the royalty. And I have you, Abhorsen. Okay? One of the 2 of the charter. Okay? So, Abhorsen and her, what's he going to do? Kill them for what purpose? What's he trying to break? Ultimately. Yes, but even more than that. The first word, the charter. He's trying to destroy the charter. Okay? And he pulls her to him and says, will you sleep unknowing till the great stones are ready for your blood, or will you go waking? Blah, 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 blah. And Sabriel stares back, and there in the hellfire of his eyes, she can see the faintest spark of blazing white. What's that blazing white? Margot, or whatever the thing, creature formerly known as Margot was. She unclenches her left fist, felt the silver ring slip down her finger. What's she already thinking? She's got this fist like this. She unclenches it. Why? Because that ring just starts to slip. Now, I couldn't get this ring to slip off if I wanted it to. Why does the ring start to slip off? Because it doesn't fit? It's getting larger. Okay? So, he's going to come up and give her a kiss. The ring, 482, was hanging in Sabriel's hand, hidden behind her back. Now, she's holding it. It's got so large, it slipped off her finger. She's holding it. She can feel it expanding. And he says a sisterly kiss, a kiss for an uncle who has known you since birth, or slightly before, but it's not enough. Okay? Sabriel felt a force grip her head, move it back, opens her lips, but her arm is free. He bends his face forward, and she drops the ring. Then silver flashed between them, and the ring was around his neck. She felt the compulsion snap off. She leaned back. Kilgore doesn't let go of her. And he says, "What's this?" And the thing starts to constrict. But what happens once it constricts? Well, what happened to the thing that was Margot earlier? Just before this. Yeah, kind of. It and Kilgore become one. Okay? So now the ring constricts, and it keeps constricting and keeps constricting, and it produces what? 2 cats. One black, one white. Okay? She stabs him with the sword. He says, "Impossible," pulls it out. 484. Swiftly as a snake, arm and sword went out, striking through Sabriel, through armor and flesh, and deep into the wooden floor beyond. Why? Because she falls away on her back. He pulls the sword out and kind of right like that. So she's now impaled on the floor. She looks at Touchstone. Touchstone says, "Roger, Roger." Sabriel closes her eyes, looks away, slipping into a world of her own, a world of pain, just bottom of 484. She knew she should do something about the blood pouring out of her stomach, but, But then she realizes, because she thinks Touchstone's dead, but I haven't felt him die. Because whenever something dies, she can feel it go off into death. Skip a bit. Page 486. She knows what must be done. Saraneth, she's not dead yet. She's on her way. Saraneth, her hand crept to the bandolier, but the 6th bell wasn't there, or the 7th, or the 3rd, and she thinks, "Careless of me, I must complete the binding." Her hand falls on Belgair, but no. She draws Rana. Rana was unusually heavy. Then lying on her back, transfixed with her own sword, she rings the bell. So, again, transfixed, and she rings the bell. It sounded sweet, felt comforting, like a long-expected bed. The sound echoes through the hall and out to where a few men still rattled with the dead, and all who heard it did what? They go to sleep. The badly wounded slipped easily into death, joining the dead. And 2 small cats sat side by side, one black, one white. Both leaned forward, and each sped up a silver ring. 487. Touchstone watched the rings roll through the dust, silver flashing in the moonlight. They hit Sabriel's side, but she didn't pick them up. Notice, when the cats spit them out, they don't just spit them out and they lie flat. These things roll, and they roll to Sabriel. Why? She's the binder. She's the Abhorsen. She's the one who controls them. And if something happens to her, who will control them after? The next Abhorsen. But what's the problem? There isn't one yet. There is not yet an Abhorsen in waiting. Okay? She doesn't pick him up. Her hand still clutched the bell, but it's silent. Her sword loomed above her, her blade in hilt, casting the moon shadow of a cross upon her face. Kind of like the novel begins. With what? Being cast upon her. The charter mark. The baptismal mark. Okay? And we get the epilogue. And we're told she's in death. She starts to struggle and then she relaxes. Why? Yeah, man. Life's been nothing but a pain. Everyone and everything has a time to die. The living world, its care seemed far away. Touchstone lived, that's good. Her work was done. Soon she passed the ninth gate, rest forever, and then she feels hands grab her. Nope, not yet. Go back. Who? More than she could count. Page 489. I can't. I'm dead. You're the last Abhorsen. You cannot pass this way until there is another. You do have the strength within you. Live. And then one comes up behind her, The face swims into view, and there's Touchstone's face looking at her. Sound hits her ears. Distant. Live, Sabriel, live. Touchstone cries out. Holding her icy hands, his own eyes so clouded with tears, he hadn't noticed hers opening. She smiles. She grimaced. Why? She's come back out of death. More survivors than she'd expected, tending to the wounded, propping up dangerous brickwork, even sweeping up the brick dust and grave mold. So, 491, we'll stop with this. She looks around. Her eyes wander to closer regions, that is, closer to where she is. She sees the 2 sleeping cats, the 2 silver rings. And now Touchstone realizes she's alive. He'd finally noticed. Sabriel turned to gaze back to him, lifted her head cautiously. He'd removed her sword, which means, she saw several of her school friends had cast a healing spell, stopping the bleeding. Good enough for the moment. Touchstone had done nothing for his own leg. Why? It's part of his sacrifice. He's not thinking of himself. He's thinking only of her. Okay? So, she comes back. Novel ends. Caragor is defeated, right? Okay. Margot is back to being Margot. We have an Abhorsen, not totally healthy. Okay. And I'll just say this, since we're going to start Jonathan Stroud on Monday, the first of the Bartimaeus books. The next book in this series picks up 14 years later. Okay. But we're not going to start that until we get through the Bartimaeus books. We will have a quiz over Sabriel on, we haven't done a quiz on Sabriel, right? Yeah. We'll have a quiz over Sabriel